Hello and welcome everyone. This is your astrology forecast for full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. And it's happening on the 27th or 28th of August, depending on where you are in the world. But regardless of that, eclipses are, as you may know, much more than exact date or exact time, because their influence is felt many weeks before and many weeks after, and their impact is unfolding for the next 6 months, and they carry so much through their 18-year cycle. So this is something that we are feeling already for quite some time. We had eclipse in Leo, and this period of time between two eclipses is also probably very intense for many of you, and it's of course always globally and individually affecting all of us in one way or another. And eclipses are turning points. They bring life-changing experiences, but I see that many people are scared of eclipses, but they are not some extraordinary, super special, unique event. It's actually happening every year. We have 4 or 5 eclipses every year. So, and here we are still alive. Apocalypse didn't happen, but yet I see every time we have new eclipse, there are those crazy titles, and people are really afraid. And I just wanted you to know that eclipses are actually putting us back on the track. They are here to, put us in alignment with our purpose, with our soul's path, and to test us, to challenge us, to show us how much we've grown, to show us repetitive patterns, to help us see something differently, to bring us more wisdom, to help us understand our experiences, to help us understand somebody else's actions and reactions, to help us understand our past, to help us gain wisdom through our own personal direct experiences. And we cannot just gain wisdom through some 1-minute enlightenment, or through reading a book, or through an encounter with a guru. It's really a process, and we are living in time, even though we have a longing for something timeless that this eclipse is talking about, because it's in Pisces. But the fact is that we are moving through time, and the ruler of this set that we are living in is Saturn, the Lord of Karma. And we are here not only to experience things, not only to learn, but to also do something with all that we know, with all that we carry, with all who we are, and to understand the processes, to understand relationships, to understand invisible algorithms within ourselves. And this eclipse is happening in Pisces. This is the last sign of the zodiac, and this is the last eclipse in Pisces in this series of eclipses that started in September of 2024 in Pisces and Virgo. So the first eclipse in this series of eclipses was in September of 2024, and now this one is the last eclipse in Pisces. And this is we will have some feeling that something is closing, something is coming to a full circle, closing of some chapter, but also the beginning of something, because eclipses are, or new and full moons, these are never strictly endings or beginnings, but both. And we know that when something ends, something new begins immediately. The exit is the entrance at the same time. Dying and birthing is having the same, it's happening in the same spot. Life and death, all these things are coming together, and now we may see the meeting between the opposites, because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It encompasses the whole wisdom of previous signs and the whole zodiac wisdom and archetypes and lessons and experiences. So this eclipse is here to help us release something, to help us process the past, to help us understand some of the things that we had hard time understanding, that perhaps started happening around September of 2024, or that are also connected to previous cycles of Pisces Virgo eclipses that were active 18 years ago and also 9-10 years ago. But this eclipse is happening at 4th degree of Pisces, so this is the beginning of the sign. And the North Node is not in Pisces, it's in Aquarius. But this is still eclipse in Pisces, even though the North Node is in Aquarius. But it's complex, it can be paradoxical, but we are learning and growing through paradoxes. And what is paradox for the mind is very, very essential for our soul and our relationship with the spirit. And this eclipse gives this lunation the feeling of an ending, but Pisces endings are not clean and clear, you know, they are not obvious, they are not easy to explain, you know, things don't necessarily disappear overnight when Pisces energy is involved. And Pisces is water sign, but it goes beneath the surface. It's not classic water sign, it's more ethereal, and it cannot be put into words, really. It needs to be felt, but since this is full moon eclipse, we have the Sun in Virgo, and we have Mercury in Virgo, which is the ruler of Virgo, and it's exalted in Virgo. So Mercury carries a lot of strength during this time. So our words, our way of thinking, our communication, our intention, our understanding of what we are feeling and what is happening beneath the surface is the key. And we may have a need to analyze, to categorize, to discern, to understand, to put things into their place, to, you know, just to pay attention to details. But Pisces is opposite, and it cannot analyze, it cannot understand, it goes beyond logic. So this is also another paradox. But we can find the way to connect these two worlds, because we carry within us possibility and potential to move between different worlds and to understand things beyond our comprehension. And something we believed, something that we believed in, may lose its strength now. It may not be that strong. You know, it feels different. Or something we wanted stops being so important, or it stops carrying that same magic, or an attachment can weaken during this time, or an illusion can become much harder to feed, to maintain. So some illusions are definitely falling apart during this time, and we are confronted with our own illusions. So it's really a powerful time to be very honest with ourselves. And, you know, we may begin seeing through something, and sometimes we don't even realize that this is happening until we notice that what used to have enormous emotional power over us just doesn't have that same power anymore. And this is what may be happening now. And we may be faced with our own loss of identity, because Pisces is talking about dissolvement of our personality, dissolvement of ego. So we may be faced with, you know, losing our own sense of self in some way. But this is Pisces, the freedom the release. We are removing everything, moving away from what is known towards the unknown, into the unfamiliar, into what we cannot see, touch, what is intangible. And this may all deeply affect our bodies. And whenever we have eclipses, you know, we feel strange in our bodies, and we may feel strange sensations in our bodies. We may experience so many things, so let it just pass through us, because this is some kind of detox. It's some kind of universal cleansing and healing and cleaning. So it's a lot about our well-being, emotional, mental and physical well-being, and how much we truly care for ourselves, how we really take care of ourselves. And Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, and there is some kind of ancient quality to this archetype. And if Aries represents the first breath and the beginning of our individual expression, Pisces carries the memory of everything that came before that first breath. And it stores everything that we forgot, that we buried, that we suppressed, that we avoided, that we neglected, that we didn't want to look at. And especially, I mean, full moons are also bringing those things to light, things that have been hidden, neglected, ignored, denied, avoided. And Pisces also brings to the surface what has been stored in our subconscious realms. So these are subconscious fears, anxieties, addictions, our blind spots, our weaknesses, our escapism modes, our spiritual bypassing, our need for peace, for something more special, for something more than what we see and experience with our five senses. So this is a very strong need for meditation, for connection with the spirit, for solitude, for isolation, for withdrawal, for being alone, for having high quality time with ourselves. But of course everything carries its shadow element, and it's a very different experience if we decide to go into solitude in order to meet ourselves, and if we decide to withdraw and isolate ourselves out of fear of meeting ourselves. So something can look the same, but can be totally different, right? And we may experience this on our own skin and through our relationships with other people. And Pisces is associated with oceans, dreams, sleeping, with mysticism, with imagination, with altered states of consciousness, with monasteries, ashrams, with sacrifice, compassion, empathy, addictions, and all the invisible worlds that we can imagine, and much more. Of course, Pisces rules the 12th house. So these are all the things that we cannot really categorize anywhere. And all these things have something in common. They have the power to weaken our ordinary boundaries, and especially the boundaries of who we are, of our individuality. So when we sleep, the identity we maintain throughout the day disappears for several hours. You know, when we fall deeply in love, the boundary between ourselves and another person becomes invisible. And every night we go to sleep, it's a little reset. It's a little death that we experience. And in our dreams, we don't have ego. Things loosen up, and we can learn so much from our dreams. And this is the language of symbols. So we are now learning this language of symbols. It becomes more familiar to us. And I always love to say that everything is a symbol. Every letter, every word, every sentence, every act. You know, we as human beings are symbols. My name is a symbol. What I'm doing is symbolic. Everything has some symbolic value. And this eclipse in Pisces is here to reveal us some of that symbolic language, to teach us some more wisdom behind the meaning of symbols, and each symbol has multi-layered meaning. So we may experience series of little deaths during this time. You know, we may be dying and rebirthing, dying and rebirthing, dying and rebirthing, and we may feel like we are sinking at the bottom of the ocean, of our own subconsciousness, and it can be scary. But every time we think that's it, we are drowning, we will come up to the surface with some new experience and new insight. But as I think I also shared this before when I spoke about eclipse in Pisces, and it's still active. Like, we get to the surface and we think that's it, but then another wave comes or something pulls us beneath, and then we again have to sink in and dig up something that we buried, that needs to be seen, that needs to be acknowledged, that in order that if we want to truly live in the way we intend to live, we have to come back for something that we forgot. We forgot something. So this eclipse may be telling us, knocking on our subconsciousness doors and telling us, hey, you forgot something. Hey, like, you cannot pass that before you do this, before you see this. So we may go back into ourselves many, many times, and it may be unwillingly. We are forced to go down into the very bottom of our being and see what essentials we have forgotten or buried or suppressed or avoided or neglected. This is something that we cannot ignore now. We just cannot say, oh, I don't want to look at it. We may try to, but something will kick us out of that safe space and show us what we have to do next and what we skipped. So whatever we skipped, we will have to see it now. Especially, you know, lessons that we tried to skip if something was happening around the September of 2024, and again the last August, and now, and 18 years ago, some lessons that we skipped, or things we thought we are done with, or something we thought is way behind us, it's in the past, is coming up again. And this may not necessarily be for us because something wants us to come back into the past, but so that we can see it differently, so that we can finally process it with our mature presence, because we have grown, we have matured. So this is a test, this is a challenge for us to see how are we going to react now to something that was active back then. How are we going to react now? How have we grown, or are we repeating the same thing? Virgo, repetition. Are we repeating something? Do we have a need to explain it with our words? Do we struggle so much to explain ourselves to someone, to show who we are when we feel misunderstood? Because we may feel misunderstood, but this is an amazing time for intentionally going into solitude, at least for a couple of hours or for half an hour. It doesn't matter. Time here is, you know, irrelevant. The quality is important, because we can spend 1 minute in that solitude and experience something amazing. We can really release something consciously. And this is really about that, about conscious release of something and conscious acknowledgement of something as well. And you know, when we pray, when we meditate, when we create art, when we listen to music, when we stand in front of the ocean, these, you know, these are the moments when our ordinary sense of being is completely different, and our sense of our own importance, of the importance of our personality, becomes less important. And I highly suggest that we do some of these things, that we play some music that really means to us, that awakens our emotional center, or that puts us into some kind of trance state. or to just observe the horizon, to close our eyes, to be in silence, to allow ourselves to feel and to turn all that we are feeling into something greater. Not only to feel all that is and all that needs to be felt, but to do something with what we are feeling, because Virgo energy asks us to actually do something. And this eclipse in Pisces is making a square with, guess who? Uranus in Gemini. So there is square between Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, the planet of shocks, surprises, sudden insights, unexpected situations, shocks, disturbance, awakenings, and it's in Gemini. So this full moon lunar eclipse may bring us shocking news, surprising news, sudden changes of plans, sudden change of opinion, change of mind, change of heart, like something we couldn't see coming, something we didn't expect. And since it's square, it's something that is kicking us out of our comfort zone. It's disturbing our personal plans and desires, but it's something that we will be grateful for, because it's really meant for our liberation, for awakening. And this doesn't have to mean that, you know, something scandalous and big is going to happen. This can be just simply some inner feeling of sudden freedom of something that we've been stuck in, freedom from a certain way of reacting, freedom from certain attachment to something, freedom from certain addiction, freedom from certain need to be needed or to be seen in the right way or to be understood in the right way. This could be sudden freedom from all those chains that we've been putting on ourselves unnecessarily, or that we had to build and chain ourselves with in order to survive something. But you know, it's been a while since those chains are unnecessary, so we may see their uselessness now and we may be able to walk away freely from what is still hurting us, what is still holding us imprisoned, what is still having huge power over us. And these could be things from the past, and things that we are unaware that we've inherited, because Pisces in 12th house is a lot about ancestors and ancestral karmic patterns and inherited beliefs, inherited behaviors, inherited reactions, inherited attitudes about love, about life, about death, about literally everything. And this square with Uranus has the power to suddenly change our way of thinking, our way of communicating, and we can expect the unexpected encounters with people who we probably didn't expect, or we may suddenly change our opinion about someone who is very important to us, or you know, we may hear some information that shocks us in some way and that has the power to help us surrender and to bring us that strong and real sense of forgiveness. It's not like we will be forcing ourselves to forgive ourselves of others or anything. It's just that deep inner feeling that we are going to feel it in our body. But we may struggle, some of us may really struggle with it, some of us may be faced with inability to forgive, with hidden anger, with hidden rage, with suppressed rage that comes as a consequence of always forgiving, of always understanding others, of always being the one who reaches out to others, of always being the one who immediately understands and, you know, doesn't even have time to process the hurt that they felt. Because this is Pisces, victim mentality, sacrifices, like, you know, no matter what, I'll be there for you, no matter what. If you do something to me, I will understand. You know, this is not having boundaries. But this eclipse is asking us for healthy boundaries. And it can be tricky, because suddenly, if we suddenly start setting boundaries, we may start setting boundaries even where they are not necessary. And this is where we can become arrogant and selfish as well. So it's really not simple being a human being in its highest meaning. And I don't think that that's even possible, you know, to be that perfect human who is really at peace with himself or herself and with everybody else, and not hurting anyone and not allowing to be hurt themselves, you know, because we are learning through all of these things, and it's normal. We human beings are very complex. We carry so much that we are unaware of as well. And we don't know how to handle these things. And I don't think there is a quick answer to this, but life is our greatest teacher, and everything that we are going through. And it's probably only many years later that we can understand some things. And we don't even know when that started happening, the understanding. We may not even know, you know, how this process happened, but it happened. So time plays very important role as well in all of this. And the ocean is probably the simplest way to understand Pisces and to understand the Pisces part in us. And you know, we can hold water in our hands for a moment, but we cannot hold it forever, and we cannot hold the sea, that's for sure. And you know, we can enter it, we can swim through it, you know, we can surrender our weight to it, and you know, we can learn about its currents, but the moment we believe we control it, the ocean is there to remind us that we cannot control it. You know, the moment we believe we are having something in control, life will probably, you know, remove that ground beneath our feet and prove us differently. So the only thing that we can control, I always want to remind me and everyone else that, you know, the only thing we can control is our perception, our reaction, our understanding, our processes, our way of communicating. This is what we can control. We cannot control the other person, that's for sure, even though we may have desperate need to try and do it, and to impose our will onto others, and to show others the right way to do something. But everyone has their own way. And of course, if we are, you know, if we love the person, we can point out to some things, but we cannot force these people to do things differently and trying to control them and teach them that there is the right way. Who are we to tell that, you know, what is the right way? We are living and learning all the time. And you know, human life contains many things that behave chaotically. And we are mostly chaotic, even though we are trying so hard to live life of order. And maybe that's exactly why we create so much chaos. Because we try to control things, we try to control the outcomes of everything, we try to control our finances, we try to control our dreams even, we try to control things that are happening in the world. But I may disappoint you, we cannot do that. But we can bring the change if we bring the change within ourselves. Of course, this has been said many, many times by many people, and I'm afraid that this became just a quote that is not truly lived. We all know what we are, you know, how things are supposed to be, and we can understand them intellectually, but when time comes for us to actually do it, we don't do it. We are there to preach to others how to behave and what to do, but we don't do it ourselves. So we may be faced with all that we are trying to correct in others that we ourselves are doing to ourselves and to others. So let's keep our eyes open and listen to our dreams as well, and observe the reality around us. It's telling us a lot about where we are right now. And you know, Pisces shows us where we are complicating life, where we are complicating our relationships, and our understanding of surrender is also very, very complicated. You know, we think of surrender as if it's some beautiful spiritual state in which we simply trust life and everything becomes peaceful. But real surrender is not so glamorous, really. And surrender can mean accepting that another person has made a choice that we cannot change. Or it can mean accepting that a relationship has reached its natural ending, or that the body has its limitations, or that certain opportunity has passed, or that somebody will never give us the apology we wanted, or that after years of searching we still don't know why something happened. This is surrender, acceptance, you know, acceptance. And acceptance is very hard, and with acceptance there comes a lot of rage and anger and inability to understand certain things. And we may have a need to do things in spite of something, you know, just for the sake of doing it, just for the sake of proving someone that they're wrong. And sometimes not sometimes, but very often, we hurt ourselves and our loved ones just because we want to prove someone wrong, or to show them that my way is the right way. And, you know, surrender is truly when we stop spending our life force, you know, in arguing and fighting with life and reality. You know, it's pure acceptance, and it's not easy, but Pisces can surrender too much as well. And, you know, we can call passivity acceptance. We can wait for a sign when we really have to make a decision, and we can prolong and procrastinate and delay things as an excuse for waiting for divine timing, waiting for the right moment, you know, waiting for things to settle down, and it never happens, it never comes. And, you know, we can tolerate someone's behavior that truly needs, that asks for a boundary, because, you know, we understand the wound behind that behavior. And, you know, we can stay in situations that constantly drain us, because leaving that situation maybe feels rude or unkind, or like a betrayal, or spiritually immature. And this eclipse can show us where we understand surrender wrongly, and where our desire to be compassionate can really become self-destructive. You know, our desire to be compassionate, to be good, to sacrifice ourselves, to be seen as a saint, can turn us into self-destructive beings. And, you know, compassion is one of the great lessons of Pisces, but compassion is much more than just feeling sorry for someone. Empathy allows us to feel another person's emotional reality and imagine life from their position, and this is a beautiful human capacity. But empathy without boundaries can be very, very destructive and toxic. And we can understand someone's childhood so well that we begin explaining their adult behavior for them, and we start justifying them. This is something that people with strong Piscean energy are often doing, and that's why they are seen as victims, and they can be passive-aggressive, and we may see this passive-aggressive behavior in ourselves too, because we all carry Pisces somewhere. We all have each part of the zodiac within us. We all carry a whole, right? But we are unaware of many of those parts of ourselves, so we don't carry the whole image of who we are. And this lunar eclipse is facing us with our inner sea creatures, with our sea monsters that are, you know, sleeping and waiting for the moment like this to come to the surface. And You know, we can feel responsible for other people's pain and wounds, but that's not empathy. So we are learning now to discern the pain of others and our own, and to stop taking responsibility for other people's behavior, and to stop playing the role of a savior constantly, like going over the limits in doing this. You know, we have to sit with our own suffering without trying to remove it. And you know, this example, you know, between mother and her child is great, because, you know, mother who never allows her child to struggle doesn't necessarily raise a strong child. You know, a friend who constantly solves another friend's problem may eventually prevent that person from discovering their own strength. So sometimes we are not doing any favor to another person. We are actually helping them become more and more imprisoned, and we are turning them into beings who are not capable of taking their responsibility for themselves. You know, sometimes helping means offering our hand, and sometimes helping means allowing another human being to discover that they have hands on their own, right? And this is where the difference between compassion and victim mentality becomes extremely important. And you know, someone can be a victim of something. You know, we experience abuse, betrayal, exploitation, injustice, illness, loss, and you know, circumstances that we didn't choose. But recognizing what happened truthfully is a part of healing. And you know, victim mentality is when a certain event becomes the only center, the main theme and subject of life, and from where the whole present and future is built. And you know, this is where the wound begins speaking for the whole of who we are. And the theme of sacrifice is also very powerful during this time. And this, you know, sacrifice isn't itself, it's not unhealthy, but the way we understand sacrifice, the way we've been taught what sacrifice is, can be very toxic. You know, every meaningful path asks for sacrifice of something. You know, when we choose one road seriously, the others can disappear. But you know, the important question is what this sacrifice serves, and if it's really consciously chosen, what is the intention behind the sacrifice, and does that sacrifice damage us or bring something greater? You know. And there is a great quote from Rumi. I haven't quoted Rumi for quite some time, and this is perfectly aligned with this energy. You know, the desire to know your own soul will end all other desires. And this one comes beautifully with this energy. And we are now really learning how to step out of those sticky realities of ours, you know, where everything becomes sticky and we are unable to remove ourselves from it. And we are asked to really dive deep into our inner oceans and to face those monsters and to allow them to come to the surface, because they are not something different from us. They are also us, but they are those complex realities that we just couldn't handle before. And of course, we won't be able to face all of it, but some part of it, yes. Some bigger, some may be able to confront the bigger part of that inner monsters. Some won't be able to deal with so much, but it's important to see what's there and not to run away, not to escape, and to react differently than we usually do. And you know, everything and everyone is our teacher. Let's not forget that. And we may find ourselves in a situation where we are repeatedly trying to save someone, or where we are repeatedly falling into our own victim mentality, where we want to be seen and acknowledged and saved. So, we are asked to take a look at, what would happen to our identity if this person no longer needed me, or if I no longer needed this person, or this escapism tool, or this this method to escape the reality. And the same method that we use for escapism can be the method for meeting ourselves. Just like, meditation, spending time in nature, retreating, going into solitude, all these things can be done. But it depends what is inspiring us to do it, from which center in ourselves we are deciding to do it. And as I always say, the same need, that there is the same root need for meeting ourselves beyond these five senses through addictions and through spiritual techniques. Going into meditation or getting drunk carries the same root need, but the consequences are very different. So we are now asked to make a choice. I just said this as an example, but this can be used in many ways. If we are taking a long walk in the woods, or we are excessively working out, training and abusing our body and all of that, or if we are starving ourselves to death, or if we are fasting consciously because we want to get in touch with reality in a much healthier way. So we are now asked to take a look at these differences with greater compassion, with healthy boundaries, and with the courage to take a look at our inner oceans. So, let's meet ourselves without trying to prove life wrong or to prove others wrong. Let's meet what rises from the deep with our open eyes. Let's follow the fish into the deep, because the glyph of Pisces are two fish swimming in opposite directions, but they are connected with the cord. So this tells us a lot about our own nature, our duality, our ability to live in different worlds, in the seen and the unseen, intangible and intangible. So let's gain the wisdom from both of them, and let's follow them into the deep. Let's leave something gold at the bottom of the sea, and let's bring the monster to the shore. And there's that great quote that I find perfect for ending of this forecast, that says, "A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor." Let's remember this, and let's not use it for an excuse for some other things. Of course, it's not easy task. It's really not easy. And let's remember, whatever happens during eclipses is unavoidable. It's inevitable. But what we do with it is what matters, and how we react to it, and how we treat ourselves and others in all of that is what matters too. And I forgot to mention that, if something breaks during eclipses, like a plate, a glass, a window, whatever, if something breaks, it's good that it broke, so that something other doesn't have to break. For example, a relationship, a marriage, a bond with someone, a part of the body. So let's not do it intentionally, though it won't count. So I wish us all a beautiful, compassionate, highly aware, transformative, shocking as well. Why not? Shocks are not bad. Full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, the last one in this series of eclipses. The next one will be in 18 years, this one, where the North Node was in Pisces too. So let's use all the tools that we have wisely. And let's choose to be brutally honest with ourselves, no matter what. And let's not hurt ourselves in this. And if this happens, let's have understanding, and let's not fall into that victim mentality, and let's not fall into trap of wanting to save others and change their stories and karmic path. You know, let's give everyone space and time to grow on their own. But in times of trouble, we can give a hand, of course. And in good times, we can share what's good. I love you all and see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.